Welcome, everyone, to the Sonoma Spiel. My name is Tim with the Sonoma Valley Visitors Bureau. A little bit of rain today, and that's important. Today, I came in to work, and I took Bennett Valley Road. You come up from Santa Rosa Plain, you go up, you go around. It's oak trees, it's windy. There's vineyards, there's some cattle. As I was driving, the water was going in the gullies and coming down the right side and going back towards Santa Rosa. And then you go through a little saddle and you go past a winery that's famous for their lavender fields, and it's owned by a large family. And then you keep going and you reach a saddle in the valley, and then you have a sign that says entering the Sonoma Creek watershed. And the water, as you know, for people who live in the hills, goes the other direction. And that's kind of an inflection point for the water in Sonoma County. The water flowing back towards Santa Rosa, a lot of it's going towards the plain and working its way down either towards the Russian River or back towards Petaluma and out through a marsh down there in an area called the Estero. And then the water in the Sonoma Creek is coming down into smaller little rivulets, down into Sonoma Creek eventually, down through Sonoma where we saw the salmon spawning last week. And then out towards San Pablo Bay, and then San Francisco Bay. And then hopefully, if the tide goes out right, it goes out to the Pacific Ocean and starts its life again. And there is nothing more important in California than discussing water and fighting over water and having bad opinions about water. Whether you're from Northern California, where we think we have the water, or Southern California, where we think you're taking our water. And if you want to start a fight here, that's how you do it. And today I have a very special guest. I know every week I say I have a very special guest. This time I actually mean it. Photographer, journalist, guy who's been in the wine industry forever and knows one or two things about water. George Rose. How are you?
Hey, I'm great.
Good.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah.
Did you follow the water too on your way here?
I have followed the water my entire life.
That's the story of George.
Yeah.
That's
I'm quite familiar with the water, especially here in Sonoma County.
Yeah.
It's an interesting tale to tell as part of a greater story about California.
Absolutely. And George, let's go back then, like to the beginning, like all things. Where are you originally from, George?
I'm from Southern California,
Right.
which doesn't have a lot of water.
Right. You grew up there
And we import all of our water.
from different places.
Yeah. I grew up in Southern California.
Okay.
Worked for many years at the Los Angeles Times.
Okay.
And was in journalism, hardcore.
Were you like a writer or what were you doing?
Photographer.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's my spiel actually.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for coming on the spiel to spiel. I like it.
Yeah, I was a photographer. I am a photographer. I have always been a photographer, but I have taken a few detours in life, not the least of which was a detour in the wine business for 25 years.
As you do.
And but water became very important to me in 2021 when I realized that we are in the middle of a 7-year drought, or maybe toward the tail end of a
biblical drought. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty drastic back in 2021, and I kind of panicked, and I said, I got to start documenting this.
Okay.
And there was an ability to get out and photograph the 1,500 major reservoirs in California that capture water. And
Wait.
water.
There's 1,500 reservoirs?
Major. Yeah,
Like
there's many more reservoirs than that, but there are 1,500 major reservoirs, which are about 100,000 square feet.
Okay.
And up. So you have Shasta and Oroville being the two largest reservoirs that hold 4.5 million square feet of water.
Yeah, that's a lot of water.
It is a lot of water, and they were empty in 2021, or getting too empty.
This is where people were saying they were towns they were finding down there, and cars and mob hits.
I think the big news was from Lake Mead, where they kept finding former mafia hits
outside of Las Vegas. There,
yeah. No, when the water levels get incredibly low, these dams cannot produce hydroelectric power, which almost all of them do.
Interesting.
The power grid in California is very reliant on hydroelectric power.
Okay.
And when there's no water to power your turbines,
You got problems.
It becomes problematic. And so, anyway, I got out to, I went to 125 of these major reservoirs in 2021 just to see what the heck was going on here in California, because it really got to a point, especially just in 2022, where the Department of Water and Power in Los Angeles pretty much said there's no water coming to Los Angeles, and people were forced to conserve and pull out their lawns.
Oh, those poor Los Angelinos.
It was an interesting moment in time where even the farmers in the Central Valley panicked.
Yeah.
And, as all dramatic stories end, however, it was a magnificent series of storms, atmospheric rivers, in 2023 that ended our drought, filled the reservoirs, all within a matter of a couple of months. Very similar to the rain that happened here a few weeks ago in Sonoma County, where you got almost a half a year's worth of rain in 3 days.
It was crazy. Can you explain real quick, what's an atmospheric river? Because this is a thing that's on a West Coast. I don't think they really have these in other places.
They have them. They're just not described the way we describe it because of our proximity to the Pacific Ocean.
Got it.
An atmospheric river is a very large plume of moisture that tend to stream all the way past Hawaii. And this is how we get our water in California.
Right.
Atmospheric rivers. We've always had them. Sometimes they were called Pineapple Expresses.
The old Pineapple Express.
There were other names. But these plumes typically aim at Northern California and Oregon, Washington.
And my understanding is there are fairly narrow bands.
Very narrow.
So it's not like, the entire West Coast gets rain. It might be like a 50-mile, 100-mile.
Well, we just had this. We just had a great example of this a few weeks ago when you guys got all the rain in Sonoma County and we got nothing in Southern California.
Right.
And the plume of moisture is very narrow band, but it is a potent band, and it's being driven by the jet stream and coming in at 150 miles an hour. And it just slams right into California's coastline and the Sierra Nevada, which is one of the great reservoirs of the world, especially when the snow falls.
Right.
This is how we get our water in California.
We store it as snow.
When the snow melts, it all goes into these wonderful reservoirs that have been built by government money over the years and then released systematically into thousands of canals, aqueducts, pipelines, and not the least of which is the California Aqueduct, which flows from the Sacramento River Delta down past Southern California. And I can go into better detail because it is so Byzantine how everybody gets their water.
Oh, yeah.
And it is very dark, and everybody fights about it, and everybody thinks they have water rights to everything, and it's just what is it? What's the old expression? Whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting.
Water's for fighting.
Yeah,
and that's a very Western, and California being part of the West.
Yeah.
Thing to do out here.
Yeah. But in 2023, after all those reservoirs were filled, everybody had all kinds of water.
Oh, so there's no problems anymore, George.
Yeah, no problem.
We solved it?
Great.
Oh, good job. You did it.
No, I mean, it's just we haven't had any rain in Santa Barbara County in Southern California since last year. It just simply has not rained.
So like you've had like 11 months of no rain.
We've had 11 months of almost no rain.
Wow.
I mean, a few drops, but we have had no rain. This is the ebb and the flow of California in that all the waterfalls in Northern California, not so much in Southern California.
Right.
In 2023, it fell everywhere.
Yeah.
And managed to get us out of that drought.
Cycle there. Let me ask you about your book then. It's called California's Changing Landscape: The Way of Water, and it's a coffee table sized book. And it's got, beautiful large photos. I see the cover photo there. Is that Shasta or which lake?
That's Oroville.
Oroville with
Yep.
the houseboats on it.
Those are all houseboats, and they're parked there year-round, whether the water's high or the water's low.
Or it's on the mud.
Yeah.
And so, George, did you ask permission to go to all these places, or do you just sort of like sneak into the reservoirs? Are they all public reservoirs, or?
They're all public reservoirs.
Oh, okay. I don't want you to incriminate yourself.
No, they're all public reservoirs. For this particular cover photo, I was in a helicopter.
You were notorious for getting great aerial photos. Actually, not notorious, famous, and renting helicopters for your vineyard stories and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So you did that here too.
Yeah, and it's gotten to be an expensive way. Of course, I could have bought 100 drones already, but at the end of the day, I like the helicopter because I can get to so many places very quickly.
Right.
And with a drone, you have to stop, you got to park, you got to move to another area.
A lot more restrictions on where drones can go.
A lot more restrictions,
legally,
and I think they do restrict drones at some of these reservoirs.
Interesting.
But helicopter, I
it.
went flying right over. And I have been to Oroville on 2 occasions because the front cover shows the lake at 28%, and the back shows it full.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
And that's in 2023.
And is Oroville the largest reservoir in California?
It's the second largest reservoir, but it's the most critical because it's part of the California aqueduct.
Okay.
So there's Shasta, which is the largest at the top end of the state, that feeds water into the Sacramento River, and so it gets used in a variety of places. But Oroville, specifically, the Feather River project is dedicated to the California aqueduct.
So it ships water from Oroville through the aqueduct all the way down.
No, it ships it to the Sacramento River. So this is where math comes in.
Right.
All of the water managers in the state have to work out their allocations as to how much water each area gets, or each district
different
gets.
agencies, right.
And so the water that is stored behind Oroville is dedicated to the California aqueduct. It flows down the Sacramento River to the delta.
Got it.
And then from the delta, it's
put back into an aqueduct.
To the aqueduct.
To another aqueduct, I guess.
And a lot of the water in the delta does go out into the San Francisco Bay.
Right. Well, thank you. The salmon, thank you. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's where the salmon come up and down, and the fish.
And the smelt.
And the smelt,
yes.
What's the one that's good for fish tacos and they're kind of flat? The halibut. I think of fish in sense of what I could eat, but yeah, because the San Francisco Bay is this massive estuary, ebb and flow, draining the northern Sierra, right, and out.
It's such a magnificent piece of geography. I mean, California really is a wonderful state. My book, California's Changing Landscape, is almost a travel log because I go to almost every corner of the state to document water or lack of water.
Look, George, how did you get into this? You're at the New York, you're at the LA Times. You're like what, covering the Dodgers and stuff, or LA stuff, whatever they do in LA, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm leaving LA. I'm out of here. Why are you here? What happened?
Yeah, I'm back up. That's a good story.
What's your creation story?
It's better than water, actually. I was at the Los Angeles Times. I was a news, weather, and sports, but mostly entertainment.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
okay. You have a
I
great archive.
photographed a lot of rock and roll and a lot of Hollywood movie stars. And
okay, because you were at the spot where they all were going, right, for like Academy Awards and movie premieres.
I was there covering all of that, and I just
wait, George, were you a paparazzi guy?
I could be a paparazzi on occasion, but generally the difference is I was usually invited in.
Oh, gotcha. Someone dropped a dime.
That's the difference between a paparazzi and what I was doing.
You went through the front door. You weren't picking the back door. And getting photos.
And that served me well. I enjoyed it a lot. I was 23 years old, one of the youngest photographers ever to be hired at the Los Angeles Times, and I was 23 and on the loose in Southern California in the 70s. I mean, it was a magnificent time.
We're lucky you're still here.
I am lucky, and that's another story. But my now ex-wife and I, after many years at the LA Times, we decided to buy a newspaper in Mendocino County called
Can't
the
go wrong.
Mendocino Grapevine.
The Mendocino Grapevine.
Yeah, it was a hippie paper, and and it was a tabloid format, and we kind of souped it up a little bit. But at the end of the day, our coverage really focused on environmental issues and marijuana.
That was the big industry up there. Back when marijuana was illegal.
It was called the Wild West.
That was a huge cash-based industry up there.
Yeah, there were murders and raids and shootouts.
So were you covering that stuff?
We were. We covered it. And
how big was your coverage area? Like the entire county of Mendocino?
it was a county weekly newspaper.
Oh, wow.
Adjudicated with legal advertising, and it was the county newspaper. And I've been to every corner of Mendocino County, which is a beautiful place.
Big place.
A beautiful place. Yeah. And we got connected with everybody who was just getting off the ground in 1980, 81, in the wine business up there. Okay. Of course, there was Parducci, and of course, there were the Fetzers and a handful of other small producers. But this was a wine region in its infancy.
Right.
And so we were up there and we were covering it like it was the most incredible thing ever in the history of mankind. And it's still Mendocino County. It's still, right. I love it to death, but it's a little bit of a backwood.
It has a bit of a backwater. It's a lot of people go up there to not be found, or to get away.
Yeah, you go up there to get lost.
You have like Philo and. I mean, I guess Ukiah is the biggest city, right?
Yes, the paper was based in Ukiah.
Okay.
It was printed in Lake County.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I believe it was printed for a while at the Ukiah Daily Journal years before I bought it, but it was a great learning experience. I got a master's degree in business master's.
How to run a business.
How to
lose money.
No, it was very, very fruitful, and I look back on that as being my great entree into the wine business because I became really great friends with the Fetzers and all 11 brothers and sisters.
Oh, I did not know that.
And it was a business that really was had taken the world by storm with its inexpensive, value-oriented wines.
Right.
And they were competing with Glen Ellen at the time. And I never even thought about it being in the wine business. I mean, I knew the difference between a Chardonnay and a Cabernet, but other than that, I didn't really know much about wine. And we owned this newspaper for 4 years, and Dean Lesher from Lesher Communications up out of the Bay Area owned the Antioch Ledger, and he was building an empire in the North Bay.
Smaller newspapers.
A newspaper in Santa Rosa. He wanted to just take over and have the ultimate newspaper in Sonoma County, and sold it to him. He wanted it more than we did, and we moved back briefly to Los Angeles just to regroup, and then I got a phone call from Jim Fetzer, who was the president of Fetzer Vineyards. His brother John, the eldest, was the CEO of the company, and then all of the other brothers and sisters played a role in the winery, Fetzer Vineyards. One did marketing, one was the artist, one was the artist.
Wait, so you went to go work for a family company with 11 brothers and sisters?
Yeah, they called me and said, hey, we need our PR person just left, and we're looking for a PR person,
right?
Communications. And I said, man, I've spent my whole life hanging out with PR people, but
they're the worst.
And he said, oh, you'll be great. I'll teach you everything you need to know about wine. And I took the leap.
Okay.
I took the leap because at that time you had to remember the newspaper business was starting to sag. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Los Angeles Times on Sundays was one of these newspapers that weighed 5 pounds.
Yeah, all the classified ads in there, and long form stories.
500 pages of editorial and advertising. I mean, it was a monster newspaper. Circulation was something like 2 million
That's
people.
Crazy.
But it was beginning to collapse because of all the mergers of the grocery stores and whatnot. And so the advertising started to fall off, and that kind of I read the tea leaves here, and I jumped into wine just on a whim.
When wine was starting to take off.
Wine was really taking off, and Fetzer was kind of leading the charge.
Okay.
And Kendall Jackson was just a little figment of Jess Jackson.
I heard of him
at the time, it was a heady time. There was a neo-prohibitionist movement going on, and so we were trying to overcome that.
Okay.
But wine sales continued to grow, double digits every year. And
what roughly year was this? Like this?
it was from 1990 on, and
Was it like the premiumization of wine and the wine boom was happening then?
Yeah. I mean, Fetzer was what they called a fighting varietal, which meant that it was like $5.99.
Oh, okay.
And a great value. And they struggled with that image, but at the end of the day, people loved their Sundial Chardonnay. It was the number one selling Chardonnay in America.
No kidding.
Ultimately, Jess Jackson's Vintners Reserve Chardonnay would
take that
knock
place.
that out.
But hold on.
At a higher price.
You went to go work for them.
I did. So I worked at Fetzer.
Yeah.
And then the Fetzer kids sold their company to a Kentucky company by the name of Brown Forman, most notably known for Jack Daniels.
Gotcha. I've heard of that too.
And I hung on. Again, I hung on because I believed that there was some kind of value there, just figuring out as I rose up through the ranks, the executive ranks of the company.
Wait, were you wearing a tie and stuff?
No, nobody wears a tie in the wine business except salesmen.
And the lawyers. Yeah.
So I stuck with it, and then I made a jump to another wine company that was based in Healdsburg. Sold the house in Ukiah and moved to Healdsburg in 1993.
Okay.
I want to say, and Allied Domecq Wines was a global wine company. And I didn't know anything about the global wine business, and so I just sucked up all the information I could. Went on trips to Portugal to see the Douro Valley.
Okay.
Went to Spain to see the Rioja, and traveled the world to Champagne. We owned Perrier-Jouet and Champagne Mum. We ended up with Napa champagne or sparkling wine.
Okay.
And we just kept acquiring all these brands. It was just this incredible acquisition mode, including Buena Vista. We had Buena Vista and Clos du Bois, William Hill, Atlas Peak.
And you were doing all the PR this whole time?
I was doing communication for all the brands. I mean, it was crazy time. Acquire. We had brands in New Zealand.
Were you like shocked, like one day you wake up and there's a new winery that you guys owned? And you're like, oh, right. And they're like, hey, George, create the whole backstory. Give me a label. Let's do this.
I was given a little bit of a heads up. The Buena Vista acquisition was interesting. A lot of these brands actually ended up in, they were in legal problems, legal issues, and so they were trying to find a way to get out of the legal issues by selling them. And so Allied Domecq, which was based in England, originally in London and then out in a little town called Bath, and it was just an incredible learning experience. I got so wrapped up into the fact that what we do here in California is just spit in the wind compared to what's going
worldwide
on in the world.
Yeah, it's
but then Allied Domecq decided to break up.
Oh.
So, somebody decided that all of its pieces were much more valuable than having it in one.
This is like the
piece.
forerunner of the newspaper business, like you're talking about. The same thing that happened with that.
Yeah.
Oh.
And fortunately, as the company was breaking up, like an asteroid in our atmosphere, Jess Jackson came along at Kendall Jackson, and we had a nice chat, and I went to work for him in communication.
Okay.
You
were there for a while.
I was 6 years.
Okay.
Which is a while in the news
in the wine business. In the wine sales business,
yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
The only people that turn over in the wine business are the people in marketing and PR.
They do. And there's a lot of volatility there.
Yeah. So I'm there with Jess Jackson at Kendall Jackson. He is the king of California.
Okay.
Premium. Coastal properties.
Yep.
believe at the time we owned 25,000 acres of California.
Because he was buying a lot of stuff in the Central Valley, and they bought some
like 35 brands.
Yeah.
But he was adamant that you could not grow quality wine in the Central Valley.
Okay.
Or in San Luis Obispo County, Paso Robles in particular. He did not like regions that were hot.
So he must be really popular down there in Lodi. They must have Judge Jackson days.
He was not popular. But he was visionary.
Right.
He was a really incredible taskmaster, visionary, built an incredible empire to this day. It is the envy of the wine business because all their price points are much higher than everybody else.
Well, you mentioned the KJ Shard became the number one seller, and I think it was selling at like $12 to $15 a bottle back when you said Fetzer was like $5 to $9.
Yes.
So,
and to this day, I think the suggested retail is something like $17.99. But
wait, people pay for wine? No.
People pay for wine. Yeah.
That's when you're outside the bubble.
So that was the experience there, and then I decided that I really wanted to get back to photography.
Okay.
But I ended up taking a job at J Vineyards and Winery, going to work for Judy Jordan.
Okay.
So I was doing PR for her, and we assembled.
Wait, but George, were you taking photos this whole time when you were going to Portugal and you were going to France?
Yes.
Were you doing it for work, or is this like for your own personal, just for
No,
fun?
I in my mind, you can't bring everybody to your winery. So you got to show it. You have to show it through promotional materials like calendars and posters. And fortunately, the marketing teams everywhere I worked were pretty savvy and understood the value of having all this original content, all this original photography to be used in numerous ways, including websites and.
You were there at the time when images were important. The distribution of images became easier with the internet, and then social media, and then, I think you were in the right place.
I remember sitting in Allied Domecq conference room one day where we were having a heated argument about whether we should have a website.
That's a dumb idea. It's not going to go anywhere.
It wasn't going to go anywhere. Exactly.
Have you heard of this thing called AOL? It's going.
And that was like 1997. Okay,
Yeah,
96.
Yeah.
Where the internet really was getting its legs.
Yeah.
And so, it's a fascinating time span to see pre-internet post and where we are now.
Right.
And the belief some have that social media can solve all of your problems. And
it can also cause a lot of your problems.
yeah. I live in a town in Santa Barbara County, Solvang. It's a Danish tourist community. Yep. This town was built on Instagram. And I love nothing more these days than to just go out and photograph all the girls that have come to town dressed to kill.
Yes.
And to create
for
Instagram videos. And this is what has driven traffic.
George, this is your chance, and I hope Visit Solvang gives you some money on this. Give me the pitch for why someone should visit Solvang, California.
Oh, the able skeevers.
Yeah, what is an able skeever?
That's the Danish version of a pancake, but it's in a ball, rolled up in a ball.
You're telling me there's an entire town, and their whole claim to fame is that they have a piece of dough that's rolled up into a ball, and then you eat that in this town.
Well, I'm going to tell you that the town is cute.
Okay.
It's a cutesy pie little place to go.
Right.
And it's like a mini Disneyland Main Street, only it's Danish. And
how did that happen?
Danish people actually settled there,
Okay.
back at the turn of the century.
Right.
And it's next to the old Spanish mission.
Okay.
Which is kind of an interesting place to visit too, but it has nothing to do with Danish.
Right.
But the town fathers just decided that they were going to have a theme to their architecture.
Got to have a shtick.
And it has worked. I've seen Solvang throughout the years, as a kid, as an adult, and now with the discerning eye of a journalist. And it has had its ups and downs. But I'm telling you right now, the advent of the internet and Instagram is the thing that drives traffic. The same way these really incredible locations around the world that I have to get to
Right.
and take a picture of me there.
Right.
Whether it's Iceland.
Right. With the blue lagoon,
Yeah. I mean, it
Eiffel
just,
Tower in Paris.
yeah, it just holds fascination for people.
Right.
To get there and take a picture of themselves in town with the windmill in the background or the Danish architecture.
Right.
And there's so many cool little shops to visit.
Right.
Wine tasting is a huge business now.
Absolutely.
There's tasting rooms throughout the town. You just park your car and stay overnight in one of the many hotels that are there,
Right.
and you just walk around the town and have a great time.
Hold on. I would like the Central Coast California Economic Development Corporation to know that this ad, while not paid for, we will accept donations. And as soon as you go to Sonoma Valley first, then you can go to Solvang.
My good friends that visit Santa Ynez Valley, they're a great group of people. They represent the lodging.
I see them at conference and trade shows
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Okay, so let's actually pivot here. You've got this book. You've been talking about water. What's one surprising or interesting thing you learned about California's water when you were making this book?
All right, so I live in Solvang.
Mm-hmm.
I live right next to the Santa Ynez River,
Okay.
which is not really a river 365 days out of the year.
Oh,
But it is occasionally flowing through the grace of the California aqueduct.
oh, it's fed through the aqueduct.
Yeah, so there's a pipeline
Oh my God.
that runs from the California aqueduct out in the Central Valley near Kettleman City. The pipeline, I think it's a 16-inch pipeline that comes all the way across the mountains into San Luis Obispo County, and makes a run through Paso, although they don't take much water.
Okay.
They have their own lake,
Okay.
Nacimiento,
Nacimiento, yeah.
a great place for water skiing when there's water in it. And the pipeline continues down the coast to the 5 cities, which include Pismo Beach and
Okay.
Arroyo Grande, and heads into Santa Maria, or heads through Santa Maria to Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is now Vandenberg Space Force Base.
All right, they launched a bunch of rockets from there.
And there's a large tank there. So the 16-inch pipeline is taking California aqueduct water to Vandenberg. From Vandenberg, it then heads east up the Santa Ynez Valley and the Santa Ynez River to Lompoc, Solvang, Santa Ynez, where there's another big tank where they store water.
For real.
And then the rest of the water goes to Cachuma Lake, which is a large reservoir in Santa Barbara County, the primary source of drinking water for Santa Barbara,
It's Cachuma Lake.
Cachuma Lake.
And it comes from a 16-inch pipeline
All the
from
way-
the Central Valley.
Yes. And it comes right by my house.
Have you
And I
secretly
did
tapped
not
into it?
understand what I was seeing when I saw this 16-inch pipe underneath a bridge, and that's the California
Oh my gosh.
Coastal Aqueduct branch. And that's one interesting thing that I learned.
That's kind of like terrifying if you're down there. Like you're really reliant on the importation of water.
Yeah, so virtually the entire state of California receives its water by pumping it out of the ground,
Right.
but they are putting the water back into the ground in these various reservoirs, including Cachuma.
Okay.
And they have an agreement that Cachuma release X amount of water every year down the Santa Ynez River to recharge all the groundwater.
I got you, the aquifers. Okay.
And so it's a very, it has a very high water table in our area.
Okay.
All the grape growers and the communities such as Solvang, they all tap in and receive their water by pumping it out of the ground, even though it's flowing down the Santa Ynez River.
Interesting. Because here, I don't know if you went to Lake Sonoma up here.
Yep.
That was built in 1982, and prior to that, people got their water from the Russian River, and that used to flow, but it would peter out a little bit in the summer. It would still flow. And then even here in Sonoma Valley, we get water from the Lake Sonoma system.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to know that it's...
Yeah, so understand that in every corner of California, there is this little story about how each community gets its water.
Right.
And Marin County is challenged. And, because basically the North Bay is a closed system. There's only Lake Sonoma and Lake Mendocino on the Russian River that can capture water. And, if the drought continue, they get hard pressed for water. That's why I hear talk about Marin actually building a pipeline across to the Central Valley to pull water.
I think they should build a pipeline from Solvang, and they could load it with apple skivers and water and push it back north.
Believe it or not, there's talk of building a pipeline from the Great Lakes. So.
Knowing the Great Lakes, I was just back there for Thanksgiving. I don't think they're going to give up their water. That's like 1/6 of the world's fresh water over there.
They're in a sweet spot.
They are in a good spot.
Global warming.
What insights did you take away from this in your travels about our water system and about our relationship with it in California?
I think everybody takes it for granted. It's very similar to people pulling up into a fast food a drive-through and just ordering, not having any idea where the food comes from or how all this was put together or any of that. It's the same way with water. You just turn on the tap and the water comes out, and I can water my lawn and all my ornamental flowers. And I mean, anybody who's growing grass for a lawn in California needs to have their head examined. I know it's a harsh statement, but at the end of the day, you don't need green grass to have some kind of status.
It's weird. It's a product. This is like one of my secret passions / obsessions. Grass was something that we saw the British aristocracy had the ability to put land out, leave it fallow because they were so rich, and have it tended to. And then it became the suburban American thing, like having a little patch of lawn.
Yeah.
But in California, do you know you need basically, like the water bottle, the 5-gallon water bottles that you get at the office coolers?
Yeah.
So stack those 6 high, covering your lawn. That's how much water in California it needs, annual basis.
Yeah.
And you could put that into a vegetable garden or a fruit tree.
I would.
And you would have much more product coming out of it, right?
Hey, when I lived in Healdsburg for 25 years, I planted over 300 redwood trees.
Oh, really? You big hippie.
It was west of the 101.
You're by Mill Creek?
Off of Lytton.
Okay.
And it wasn't on the range, it wasn't within the complete accurate range where redwoods
you were on the edge
naturally.
You were on the edge.
But I could see the ridge.
Right.
And so I planted these things. They sucked a huge amount of water to get started for the first 10 years.
Right.
And then they just took off.
Yeah. Then redwoods, if you do it right, can also create water by taking the fog and then the droplets.
Yeah, that is how they get their water. Is they pull it from fog.
Isn't that amazing? It's the way it is. But yeah, I really like that insight, George, that a lot of people just think water comes out of a pipe in their kitchen. And I remember this because once we were having severe drought restrictions up here, and we were serious, right? People are taking out their lawns and, you were saving your cold water when you're waiting for it to warm up to water the plants. And I went on a trip to LA for a media visit. And as I'm landing, I just see lawns being watered.
And pools.
And I'm like, what is going on? Like, we're up there, like, bathing with tea kettle water. They're like, these petunias need water.
and it gets worse. I mean, just fly over anywhere in Palm Springs out there.
That's amazing,
I mean, the green grass, the pools, the golf courses, which there are 125 golf courses in the Palm Springs area.
Wow.
Which require millions of gallons of water to keep green. It's just, at some point, all of this is going to have a tipping point where none of it will be sustainable if we continue to heat the way we are.
There's no free lunch in physical systems, right? Like eventually someone's going to have to pay for all this water being used.
Exactly. I mean, the book, my book, California's Changing Landscape, is a dark subject. It's a dark subject, and I wanted to get some sponsorships from my friends in the wine business.
Was Nestle going to buy?
No, I don't want to have anything to do with it.
I don't know, George. George who?
There's pictures of fire and flooding and heat waves and epic snowpack.
Right.
So much snow that they couldn't even open the ski resorts.
This
for
is
weeks.
but this is a very California story because people like I would say like you and I sell a idealized version of California in our places, right? Yeah. But California is a really weird, interesting place, right? It's a desert, but it's also very lush. It's got long periods of drought and then the El Nino, La Nina cycle of a lot of rain. And it's this boom and bust cycle.
It is. It's a boom and bust.
We have adapted the landscape to accommodate the 40 million people that live here. When in reality, it could probably accommodate like 1 million if we didn't do that, right?
It's a challenge for California because the boom and bust cycle of are we going to get enough water to serve the people or are we going dry?
And then agriculture is a huge industry.
The Central Valley is one of the most prolific places in the world.
It's ridiculous how good, when you drive through there,
you're
like all this lettuce, all these almonds or almonds.
And it's only water.
It's only water. It's water encased in cellulose.
And I think that cooler heads were prevailing back during the drought, where they were thinking, well, maybe we don't have to grow as many almonds as we do. Maybe we don't have to ship all of the almonds to China. So there were these conversations that were going on, and you cannot discount the power of ag here in California, and that includes the wine business. Yeah. And but all of the crops that are grown here are just grown on a scale that very few places in the world can accommodate.
Right.
And it requires all the water from the Sierra.
Tell me you're going to leave. Okay, but do you have like a hopeful message at the end of this? Like, and in the end, things are going to be good? Or do you leave it like, we're all screwed?
No, I don't have an we're all screwed attitude. But the signals are pointing at a warming Earth. We cannot deny this.
Yeah, I agree.
We may have even already passed the tipping point of 1.5 centigrade where, all hell was going to break loose.
Right.
It didn't break loose, but it may break loose.
Yeah.
I think that we humans can figure our way out of all of this, and I'm not hopeful that we're going to be off of fossil fuel anytime soon on this planet. We're going to be really good at it here in California, and we're generating massive amounts of solar, wind, hydro, massive amounts of electricity here in California, and we've only recently figured out how to master the storage of that.
Biggest problem, right?
Yeah. And so California really has an opportunity to show the way, but we still have India and China. They probably built, while you and I were talking, they probably just finished building a coal-fired power plant.
Fired right up over there somewhere.
The rest of the world is still burning incredible amounts of fossil fuel, and all of that going into our atmosphere is not good.
And that's the trap, right? Because they say you guys have a quality of life that you enjoy. Right, you have people that they can eat every day, and they have fresh lettuce in the middle of winter. What about us?
Yeah,
and there's that trap we get caught in as humans.
I hold out hope that one day the United States will help lead the way with a much more sustainable future when it comes to the creation of our power and the creation of our food.
Right.
And I would like to think that we are smart enough to show the world the way. That's being diplomatic.
That's awfully optimistic coming from an old news guy. I like that.
Yeah, I'm an old news guy. I've seen it all.
Seen it all. Before we go on to the next segment, because you're going to help me answer questions, tell me the name of the book again and how can people get it?
Yes, this is California's Changing Landscape, The Way of Water. It was published by the California Nature Art Museum which happens to be in Solvang.
Oh, okay.
It is the only museum in California that has an entire focus on art and nature.
Oh, together. Like, it's not art of nature, but it's like...
Art and nature together in a way to help explain our environment and conservation and
Okay.
et cetera. It's a rather unique, wonderful institution.
Okay.
And you have to go to their website, which is calartnaturemuseum.org. You just go to...
It really rolls off the
Yeah,
tongue.
it doesn't roll off, but California Nature Art Museum. Just go to their website, California Nature Art Museum, and they have a store.
Okay, good. I'll look it up here.
And
California Nature Art Museum.
yep, and
Oh, yeah, I see it here.
they were great. I mean,
Oh, yeah, it is calnatureartmuseum.org.
yep, it's a little bit of a mouth.
You should look into doing PR. You're getting pretty good at it. You're starting to learn a thing or two.
Yeah. I know. I was on the board. I'm on the advisory board. I'm helping to organize an exhibit of a photographer by the name of William Neal,
Okay.
which opens in March. He has been photographing Yosemite for years and is a protege of Ansel Adams
Oh, wow. Okay.
in the digital color
Okay.
version. And he's a fantastic photographer, and he has an exhibit opening March 8. So I helped to organize that.
Oh, okay.
So, I'm just volunteering wherever I can.
Yeah, good for you.
But yes, unfortunately, there is no distributor left in California for books.
Oh, right.
The only distributor is me going to every single bookstore and
saying,
asking
"Hey,
them,
you
"Would
wanna-
like
you want
to
these
carry
books?"
this book?"
I like it. I like these kind of books.
Yeah.
But I can see the problem of having to drop them off yourself.
It was a limited edition, exclusive for the California Nature Art Museum. They use it in their fundraising. They give it to, if you want to become a member at a high
Right.
level, you're going to get this
I gotcha.
copy of this book.
Wait,
And-
I thought they just give out tote bags and stuff nowadays, but no. look at
No,
that.
you're going to get a
That's
really
classy.
beautiful book.
Hold on. This is also an ad for the California Art Nature Museum. I'm just doing a little kickback from them, too.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So if they want to give us a commission,
The California Nature Art Museum
it.
probably won't have 2 cents to rub together. But yeah, it's
Maybe a postcard.
It is a 501c3, and all donations are.
got it. So you can find the books there at calnatureartmuseum.org, or if you happen to be in Solvang and you're taking a photo of Abel Skiver and you see George, then you can ask him if you can buy a book.
You got to go to the museum. If you're coming to Solvang, you got to stop
gotta see it
in.
there.
They got great programs for the kids. The kids can go up on the 3rd floor and do all kinds of
Look at you.
artwork.
Are you on the board over there?
I am. The advisory board.
Okay, fair enough. That's the best kind of board because you don't have to go to all the meetings. Well, here, let's do this. Before, part of this podcast is you have to answer questions we get from visitors.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you know that, but
Fire away.
here's how it works, George. We have 2 visitor centers. People come and they ask us questions. They call us, they text us, they email us, they Facebook us, and this segment's called We Get Questions. Here we go.
Okay.
First one we got is we are visiting and we notice in the winter there are people in the fields, in the vines, long rows of people doing something.
Yes.
What are they doing out there?
The vineyards go to sleep. They go dormant at a particular time, usually after a long cold spell. Vines will go to sleep. That is the best time in the winter to trim them back, to prune them.
Okay.
And so that's what you're seeing in the vineyard. Workers all by hand. There are not many machines designed to do this kind of very detailed work, to clip off the extraneous cordons and keep the good ones.
Got it.
For next year.
sets
Next year sometimes comes very fast. I've seen some of these vines bud out in February.
Oh, wow.
When the weather suddenly gets warm for a day or two.
Right.
I've seen it happen. But yes, the vineyards are being pruned.
Got it. It's pruning, and they're cutting the grapevines to set up the next harvest. Okay, good. Have you ever done that?
I have.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you still have all your fingers?
No, but I had to wear gloves and I used the clippers. And I mean,
Those guys are
they're
so
still
fast.
using.
They're insane. Like, when you see the professionals out there, there's like boom, 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 pull the canes, throw on the ground.
Yeah.
They don't stop.
And all those canes that get thrown on the ground, they're actually mulched.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Some point there'll be a tractor or something goes through there and chops them all up.
Goes back to the soil. Okay.
Yeah.
Another question we got is we love going to wineries. We're not big wine drinkers, but we like gardens and like vegetable gardens and just beautiful gardens. Are there any wineries that have those?
Oh my gosh. Look, I'm not shilling for Kendall Jackson, but they have one of the great gardens
Yeah.
in Sonoma County.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
Right.
Matanzas Creek has a beautiful lavender
Yeah.
garden. But
That's beautiful in June, by the way. Like that's just ridiculous. It's just like lavender as far as I can see.
I mean, this is the time of year when things kind of look a little barren, but there's always something going on in the winery garden this
Right.
time of year.
Absolutely.
But the best time is to see it in spring or summer.
Okay, good. Question we got is we've talked about the plants. Let's talk about the animals. I've heard that there might be mountain lions in Sonoma Valley. Is that true?
I guarantee you there are mountain lions everywhere in California, and Sonoma Valley definitely.
Yeah.
We had one walking in my backyard down at Santa Barbara. These are creatures that are part of the landscape. They have always been part of the landscape. Mountain lions, bears, some cases wild pigs, wild turkeys, but it would not surprise me to see a mountain lion in Sonoma Valley or anywhere in Sonoma County. And a lot of the wineries actually have open spaces that so that these animals can cut through their properties. So there's none of these animals are being constrained necessarily in their normal travels up creeks or across the terrain.
Yeah, I think most of the grape growers, they're 99.9% of them are very much attuned with their land. That's how they get the better yields.
Yeah.
And so they'll leave those wildlife corridors because they're important.
Yeah, I've photographed many vineyards that had wildlife corridors.
Have you seen a mountain lion, like a photographed one?
I have only photographed one once, but I must say I heard a spectacular fight between a couple of mountain lions once where it was just the most bone-chilling, and they were going at it. It was just right kind of over in the trees away from me, and it was wild.
I would have had to change my underwear. That would have been terrifying.
Yeah, you don't really want to have an encounter with a mountain lion, and they don't really want to encounter you. But I must say it's not out of the realm of possibility that you will see. I see pictures on posts from my friends of bobcats in their yard.
A lot of bobcats. Yeah. And I love the trail cameras. Here we have the Sonoma Ecology Center up, and they run Sugarloaf State Park, and they have some trail cameras where they capture, like you said, the mountain lions and the bears. The bears are impressive, but the mountain lions, when you see those paws, they are not small. No. And the mountain lions are huge. And I'm so happy I don't see you. They see you, but I'm happy I don't see them.
Yeah.
And they just stay over there.
One Christmas a few years ago, we had a bear marching through Solvang.
Oh my God.
and it wasn't like the bears that you see up in South Lake Tahoe, where they're looking through.
Those bears are professionals. They ride the bus and they know how to pick locks. Yes.
This was just one that came down out of the hills. It was during the drought.
Okay.
Probably looking for water.
Yeah, that's what they do. Okay. Here's a question about wine. You know a thing about wine.
I do.
Oh, a little bit. A visitor says, we are looking for a winery, but we like sweeter wines. What should we do?
Well, first of all, check out if there's something that catches your eye in terms of a name of a winery or something that you want a winery that you want to visit. Go on their website and just check to see if they're making any of these sweeter wines. And when I say sweeter wines, I don't mean a Cabernet or a Chardonnay or a Merlot or a Pinot Noir. This would probably be along the lines of a Riesling.
Okay.
And let's see, what else? A Riesling and...
Sometimes like the port.
Gewürztraminer.
Oh, yeah. So those wines that are naturally sweeter.
Yeah. And they're made in those styles, the Germanic styles, where they're sweeter. But you can find these wines. They're all over California and up in the Anderson Valley of Mendocino County. A number of the wineries up there are making sweet wine, not dessert wine, not the. I mean, they're probably doing dessert wine, but I'm just. They have a touch of residual sugar that gives it a sweetness to it.
Got it. Okay. Because sometimes when you have a very sweet wine, like a dessert wine,
dessert wines are higher in alcohol too.
That's the problem. You drink that like it's a glass of wine.
Yeah.
Then you've got a problem.
Yeah. I mean, then you're off into port territory.
Yeah, and you're having problems. And you don't feel good. Last question. Yeah, like I said, people come up and ask us all sorts of questions, George. So the question is, someone came up. They said, "Hey, I'm here, and I'm from, Solvang, and I want to take really good Instagram photos. Should I use my iPhone or should I use a real camera?"
Oh, my. Well, listen, I am a huge fan of my iPhone 15 Pro Max, and I am a huge fan of my real DSLR cameras that have full-size sensors and can create incredibly massive files of beauty. I must say, the advances of the phone cameras really lend themselves to going light, and I am now shooting an awful lot of photography with my phone.
Okay.
I don't do a lot of selfies of me. I usually hand my phone to somebody to take, just because I don't like the angle, the kind of slightly distorted angle. And so I give my camera to somebody if I want a picture of me, I give it to them, and I'll go stand underneath the windmill. But I see a day where Apple is probably going to fix some of their issues with the telephoto lenses. I mean, the telephoto version on the iPhone is not quite up to snuff. All the other lenses, and you can see there's quite a number of them on the back.
Yeah.
All the other lenses are fantastic.
Okay.
This camera is so amazing, and it's amazing in low light situations.
Right.
And here in the studio, we're all lit up. You can take beautiful portraits.
Right.
But if you're into Instagram, this camera will send you directly to the internet. And you can post pictures straight from it, which is what most people do.
Yep. And you can edit. Some people do the super saturation and all that sort of tricks. And stuff.
I mean, I just did a video as I crossed the Golden Gate Bridge the other day. I haven't been across the Golden Gate Bridge in a long time, so I took a video and I put it to music and I put it on Instagram Reels. I got like 100 people are saying, "Oh God, this is great! This is great!" It's been done 100 times before. I've never done it, but I'm having fun.
Right.
If I was a betting man, I'd put all my chips on Instagram. I love Instagram because it's all about the photography.
Right.
Facebook is a little bit more about the stories and the trials and tribulations.
Well, and arguing with your neighbors.
But Instagram, love it.
Okay, so the answer is, if you're going to do it, you can do fine with your phone.
Yeah. These books.
Yeah.
We're all shot on Canon 5D Mark III digital cameras, 24 megapixels. I mean, it's
the whole 9 yards there.
Thing. However, there is a little Easter egg in this book. There is one photo that was shot with an iPhone, and you will never be able to tell.
I'm gonna go through it and find out. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's a good answer. I like that one. It's like, and if only you could go back and tell those Allied Domecq guys that. Hey, I'm going to take with my phone a video and put on this internet thing, and it's going to be huge.
I'm telling you, I nobody knew what to make of. And so it was kind of fun to see everybody stumbling back in the 90s about what to do with this newfangled thing called the internet.
How do we solve the problem of internet?
Or the interweb, as one person called it. And really, we have to have a place where we put all of our pictures and information, and that's how we're going to sell wine someday. And it's like nobody had any inkling.
Magic, George. It was going to be magic.
Yeah.
George, it's been wonderful having you here.
Thanks,
the book, again, is called California's Changing Landscape, The Way of Water, Photography and Your Words by George Rose.
Yes.
Okay, and people can find it at calnatureartmuseum.org, or they can personally drive down to Solvang
Yeah.
and see you on a Saturday out there taking photos.
You come down to Solvang and go to the front desk at the museum and tell them to call George over. I'll give you a personal tour.
I love it. And after you've done that, and after you've helped my friends at Visit Solvang and the entire Central Coast, make sure you go to sonomavalley.com for deals, special offers, and events. And there's a lot going on here in the off season, so great time to come visit Sonoma Valley. And Mom and Dad, thanks for listening. Larry, hope you're doing well, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.